Hey guys, we're back for another episode of Find Your Film. I am here with Eric Holmes. For you YouTube watchers, he's called Katrina and the Wave. That is a lot of memories from my 80s, our 80s. There is the Bruce cat, Bruce Perky. I have no idea what that means. I guess that has to deal with one of Bruce's picks for this week. I'm Greg Srzavossi, the moderator and the least knowledgeable cinephile of the trio, which is the reason why I'm a moderator. I'd like to listen to their opinions on cinema, and I'll chime in now and again. We have a lot to cover. Before we start, I have to actually apologize. I was being a taskmaster last week. I got the screening link to this movie called The Last Shift, and I was really excited to see The Last Shift. And I emailed Bruce and Eric, and I said, let's do The Last Shift for next week. That we need to have one movie out of every single episode. We have to be in unison and review it together. Eric Holmes watched The Last Shift. Bruce Perky, the Bruce Cat, watched The Last Shift. The Last Shift went to me. I did not complete The Last Shift. I did not even start it because there was a 3-day screening link window, and my fault. I am off that review. It's only going to be Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes. My irresponsibility will actually be your advantage because it's probably more interesting listening to Bruce and Eric talk about The Last Shift. So, Bruce, have you been watching a lot of movies last week, or have you been busy? How's it been? Still consuming a lot? Satoshi Kon? Nah.
I've only done about 7 movies, so moderate.
Moderate. Okay. Eric Holmes, I think as soon as maybe a couple of days on our Facebook message chain, you showed a bunch of physical media things you bought. What did you buy? Tell our listeners, what are some of the Blu-rays you bought the last several days?
I got 3 movies by a filmmaker you may have heard of called Satoshi Kon. I got Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, and Tokyo Godfather. And I was going to get Paprika, but the only one they had there was the DVD, the gently used DVD. And so I went ahead and skipped that, wait and see if I can find a better one.
Need the Blu-ray.
Yeah. Well, that's what I got on the other 3. And so the Paprika would have been the odd man out. I think it had like maybe a Blockbuster sticker or something on it. It was a really but we'll keep looking for that one. And I got through I don't want to rewind it just yet, but I got through most of Millennium Actress. I got about 15 minutes left on it. But you guys, his movies are pretty awesome. This one's no different, and you guys were right. This one's pretty good, and from what you say, the best is yet to come within those last 15 minutes. So I can't wait for that. And
Yes.
might have something to say about Tokyo Godfather as well. But that's a tease for next week.
Oh, okay. Maybe we're going to do a Satoshi Kon redux. Who knows? Maybe I'll see Paprika. Of course, I am a continual liar. I've been saying I'm going to watch Uncle Peckerhead for the last 2 months. If you listen to the the last interview I did with Pamela B. Green, that was our latest episode for the Untold Story, Be Natural, the Untold Story of Elise Guy Blaché. Had a close to 30-minute interview with Pamela B. Green. And again, if you didn't listen to our last episode, she actually calls out Bruce towards the end of the interview. Again, I was too cowardly to make it was not Bruce Perky. To Eric Holmes, it was Eric Holmes. But you know what? They all have the same, right, Bruce? We all have the same opinion on on Thomas Edison anyway. So, right? So
Asshole.
there you go. That's why we're E, folks. That's why we're E. Before we get to what is it, The Last Shift? Before we get to The Last Shift, we're going to do some rewinds this week. Do you guys have any rewinds to cover? That's a no for you, Bruce. You sort of, Eric, do you have something maybe?
No, just to kind of rewind with Millennium Actress, but I'll wait till next week when I'm actually finished with it. I've finished most of it. I like it a lot so far, but you can't rewind a movie you haven't watched all of it. It doesn't make sense.
Fair enough. To inadvertently make up for my stupidity last week, for some reason, I actually listened to Bruce's advice. Even though Bruce is very smart, I don't listen to people's advice very much. I saw my octopus teacher on Saturday. So I'm actually doing a rewind. I've never done a rewind when we were movie mainline
Yes.
or find your film. I finally actually listened to the gods and decided to actually follow this segment correctly. My Octopus Teacher. Have you seen this, Eric Holmes?
No, I mentioned the
Oh,
aversion
fish.
to fish, but at the same time, I kept looking at the poster thing. I'm like, I'm gonna end up watching that. It's gonna cause nothing but stress in me the entire time, but I'm gonna end up watching that fucking thing.
But it's not okay. So okay, not to belabor the point, but you have an aversion or fear of fish. But if it's a goldfish in a tank, you could put your hand in there. There's
Yeah.
no that's but it's with the teeth with fish like the
No,
fish teeth thing.
my the thing I worry about is anytime they do something on wild like sea creatures, without fail, I'm watching it and everything's going good, and then all of a sudden they have like a close up of some just like mangled up looking, I don't know, piranha or deep sea angler fish, and I'm just looking at them like, ah! So it's just it's jump scares in horror movies don't get me, but just quick cuts to mangled, fucked up looking fish. That's my jump scare, and I don't
Fair
like
enough.
them.
So my Octopus Teacher, I'm on IMDb, 8.6 out of 10, rating of over 3,200 ratings. Plot synopsis: a filmmaker forges an unusual friendship with an octopus living in a South African kelp forest, learning as the animal shares the mysteries of her world. Bruce Perky had a really good, solid review of My Octopus Teacher. I forget if you were trying to entice me by saying this movie's only 85 minutes. Okay. Bruce's, if I recall, your main slight complaint was the main guy, Craig Foster. Eric, this Craig Foster, he's lived in a home right off the coast of South Africa. And it's a home right by the rocks. You go past the rocks and you go right into the ocean. First of all, that is an amazing, what an
Yeah.
amazing location, right? To live.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
If you have an aversion to fish or really wildlife sea creatures, I still say dive into this, no pun intended, My Octopus. Don't dive into My Octopus Teacher because, first of all, it's a beautiful, on a superficial level, it's a beautiful looking movie to watch. It's just, if you have a stressful, look, we all have stressful days. If you just literally put on My Octopus Teacher on Netflix, streaming on Netflix, you will be relaxed because you're seeing a completely different world that's not, it's a documentary, but it's a completely unique documentary. You're living basically in the ocean for 85 minutes. I love this movie. I love it, love this movie. The only problem, again, it goes to Bruce's point. This Craig Foster guy, he tried to ascribe a lot of human profundity into the proceedings.
Yeah.
And I just found that to be really sappy. There are moments when he goes out to the ocean with his son. They could have done that in an organic fashion, and it looks, that's fine. Father and son, great thing. But when you put Craig's just middle-age crisis and trying to find
Yeah.
his place in the world on top of being this whole courtship of Eddie father, it's like this
Yeah.
father and son thing. It's just too much sugar upon sugar. It's really, yeah.
He wanted to make himself the center of the story, and he wasn't the center of the story. And every time he tried to put himself into there, I was like, "Come, dude, midlife crisis. Go get a sports car and just watch the octopus and shut up."
That's it. If it was just a cipher, some dude, in voiceover, it may be some dude, and you just blackened out who that dude is. There's like 60-minute interviews. You don't know who that person is. This would have been a more interesting documentary. It's just, you get by the end of this, you feel the guy's very sensitive, and in fairness, you understand he is very passionate about this octopus, and he's passionate about the wildlife, the sea life, the life in the ocean. He knows his stuff, so he gets a huge pass because of how much he is actually passionate about what he's doing. I just feel he tried to reach a little bit too far, and at the end of the movie, I was saying that he has this project when he's teaching other, and this is not a spoiler. He still goes out to the ocean with other people and for climate change to save the oceans, understandable, but with the way the movie is framed, you really feel ultimately that it's almost a PSA for his organization because of the way he was ascribing his own human element, and like Bruce was saying, by trying to inject himself too much into
But
this. Yes,
that being said, you got to admit there's a couple sequences, especially in the last third, that will kind of blow your mind.
blows. Yeah, yeah. This is just like Bruce says, right to his review. It's a mind-blowing documentary. You just have to give this guy a little bit of space and
Yeah.
and just say, you know what, man, I'm not endorsing alcohol. I am as PC as they come. I'm double PC, but sometimes someone needs a beer. Maybe someone really needs a beer, and I hate to say it, a smoke, other things, other vices. He needs something. But I highly recommend My Octopus Teacher, streaming on Netflix. Eric, I'm sure you do a lot of work. We all do a lot of work. You need a little bit of time off yourself. This would be a great documentary to see, as not just to add to your list of movies you see. It'll actually, on top of that, really make you feel really relaxed. And it is moving. So My Octopus Teacher for the rewind. And again, my mea culpa for the featured review this week, The Last Shift. I really wanted to pick this movie because it stars Paul Jenkins. And I remember, is that Richard Jenkins? What's his name? What is his name? This is why I didn't do it. Wait, hold on. Last Shift. What's the guy?
Richard Jenkins' brother, Paul, is in this movie.
Richard Jenkins. Wasn't he in The Visitor? I think he was in The Visitor. He was in this movie called The Visitor, and it'd be funny if it was like Paul Jenkins was in The Visitor, but Richard Jenkins is, I think, a national treasure. Love him as an actor, and when I saw him actually as the lead in The Last Shift, I was all over this movie. Comes out in limited release, I believe, on Friday. I'm just going to very quickly set up for you guys. Written and directed by Andrew Cohn, and it was an official selection of 2020 Sundance Film Festival. And that's all I'm going to say about The Last Shift. This seems like a very low stakes indie film about relationships. I don't know how close that is. Bruce, do you want to give your take on The Last Shift, what it's about, and go in with Eric on this?
Yeah, you've kind of got it nailed. I would say it's kind of shooting for the same sort of territory as a movie like Driveways. I mean, it's not the same, but that kind of like very small, several characters, independent, very relationship character driven kind of comedy drama. I'd say it's a comedy drama. It has a lot of comedic elements. The basic idea is you've got Stanley, Richard Jenkins' character, and he's been working at a fast food joint for, 30 years, I think they say, or 30 something years.
Long time.
Yeah, long time. I think he's working at Oscar's Chicken and Fish Shack or something like that, somewhere in the outskirts of, somewhere around Chicago, I think, if I remember correctly, Illinois somewhere. I could be wrong about that. Anyway, and I thought about, actually, I wish I could do the remote. I do a remote from Rooster's Chicken here in Alabama because you would get the same kind of feel. There's a place here called Rooster's Chicken House, and it's very much similar to that. And he is introduced to another character, a new hire that's going to kind of take his spot because he's finally going to leave after years and years and years. And the new hire is Javon, played by Shane. Let's see if I can get the name here. Shane Paul. Oh, I didn't write it down very well. Maybe you've got it there.
Shane Paul McGee, MCHGHIE. Shane Paul McGee plays Javon.
And that's Paul Jenkins. So.
Yeah.
He exists somewhere.
So,
yeah.
He's basically on like parole in a sense that he's got to stay, employed, and he's got to kind of do. He's not a bad kid, but he's kind of gone slightly afoul for some kind of minor stuff. But his young life is kind of adrift, so he kind of comes in there with the attitude of like, he kind of knows the world, and what's this old guy going to do? And the old guy is, of course, Paul Ash, aka Richard Jenkins, and his character is very unique as well. And we'll let Eric kind of take it from there and kind of give his impressions, and we'll talk it out a little bit.
He's kind of a pushover and this Javon kind of comes in and kind of like, what are you still doing this job for? Oh man, you've been here, blah blah blah. And it's his last day on the job, or it's supposed to be his last day, but now he's got to train Javon before he leaves and before he gets his paycheck, which by the way, not legal, but whatever. That's not. This is kind of a even though it's a fast food place, it's kind of sort of under the table sort of thing. Not exactly, but this movie. I hated watching this, but it's really good. And the reason I hated watching this is because there are so many things in this movie that I absolutely relate to, that when I watch a movie are the mundane things that really bug me about my life, or really bug me about aspects of my life in the past that I get to relive while watching this, because it is so good. And like, so they hit on so many mundane details on this. And I just watch it and go, oh God, I remember that. That sucks so bad. And then well, I mean, the biggest thing is I don't have very good luck with cars, and neither does Stanley.
No, yeah.
He's got the worst luck with cars. So anytime he was like, there was a point where he was buying a car test. Now I haven't had the thing that happened to him while he was test driving it, but trying to get somewhere in the car just break. Like anytime he's inside of a car, I'm just like on stress level 10. Like, oh God, this thing. I've been here and I hate this, and I know being in the middle of nowhere and trying to start a car and and yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff that I was able to relate to because it's done really well. But that's also why I hated watching it, because it just reminded me of aspects of my life that I'd rather not remember. Nothing, like you said, it's very low stakes, but the stakes, at least to me, the stuff that happens so realistic that it kind of hits home more than, say, someone that needs to save the universe or something. Getting the car from point A to point B,
Yeah.
is
And that
rings
car
a lot
scene
truer.
is. Yeah, I was going to say that car scene is really kind of a key scene. So the basic idea is that, and we didn't kind of mention this, but Stanley is going to be quitting his job because he wants to take care of his ailing mother who lives in Florida, I believe.
Yeah.
And he scraped up some money. He's going to buy a car, but he's not going to be able to buy a great car. And he's going to get his stuff and, leave the job finally and drive out, get a place, and take care of his mom in the ailing years of her life. That's kind of the basic concept of what he's doing. But the scene where he goes to buy a car, so throughout the movie, I guess I would say that there's this kind of constant tug and pull between his sort of view of himself, like he's kind of acts like he's satisfied with his place in life, his small place in life, like he feels pretty content where he's at, but he also is constantly kind of getting derided by younger people as a loser, and like, what are you doing, old man? And all that kind of stuff we kind of mentioned earlier. So when you get the scene of him going to buy this car with cash, and you really get the feel he's out of his element. He doesn't know if it's a good car or a bad car. You feel he's pulling out cash. He's going to pull out cash to some guy he doesn't know. It's almost a nerve-wracking scene as much as it is kind of a funny and also kind of a sad scene, because that there's no way this can go well, but the way it doesn't go well is kind of amazing. I think. I don't know what Eric would say, but it's something. And the whole movie is kind of like that. It's comic, but it's tragic, and it's frustrating because it's almost too realistic, I think, to some degree.
Yeah, he's
but
constantly.
That also makes it great.
Yeah, he's constantly just trying to get a step ahead, and then just life just in these little tiny inconsequential ways to anyone else is inconsequential, but to him, that little tiny thing that gets in the way, his life is such that little tiny thing fucking destroys so much stuff and sets him like 12 steps back. And so he's constantly trying to get ahead and just can't do it. And and the thing that he needs to do is so simple. It's right there. It's so simple, but it's just he's not in a position in life where he can afford these tiny road bumps. These tiny road bumps are mountains for him, and yeah, it's yeah, definitely nerve wracking to watch.
And you got to mention, like you said, he always is making choices that are just slightly wrong. And it might be something as simple as taking a walk on a break from work to go get something and then come back to work.
Yep.
And the steps he makes along the way might cause a major upset in his life, where it shouldn't necessarily do that. And we got to mention, as is probably obvious to anybody, Richard Jenkins is freaking awesome in this. I mean, he is really good.
Yeah. I would say everyone all around is really good in this.
Yeah,
Shane Paul McGee,
Mhm.
and his character kind of reminded me a lot of Oscar Isaac in Drive. Not same characteristics, but when Oscar Isaac shows up in Drive, when I first saw it, I'm like, I know exactly what this character is. And then the character reveals himself. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this character is a lot more interesting than I thought. Like when Javon shows up, okay, I know this character. But then he kind of, it's not like, reinventing the wheel, but his character goes in a slightly different direction than his character normally would go in any other movie.
So The Last Shift, it comes out in theaters September 25th. Guys, final thoughts. Would you both recommend this movie or slight recommend in general with The Last Shift?
I would recommend it. I would just caution you that if you live a paycheck to paycheck lifestyle, you're gonna this might not be the escape you're looking for. This might be just you looking in a mirror.
Yeah, I would recommend it, especially if you're into like the smaller indie dramas, comedies. It's really solid. It doesn't quite reach the heights of Driveways. I think Driveways is a spectacular movie. This is a good, solid movie. And we didn't mention also Ed O'Neill plays a small role in this, and he's really good. And also Allison Tolman, if you're familiar with her, is a small role as well. Really good. And if you haven't seen her or don't know who she is, if you watch the first season of Fargo, she is absolutely spectacular in that. So definitely someone to keep on your radar.
Okay. Thank you guys for The Last Shift. And review was well done. Really well done. I'm glad I was not part of it. It was very good. Very good. Very good. First off, for our Find Your Film movie picks, Bruce, you're up first for the roundabout. What's your first recommendation this week?
My first is my worst, but because it's getting tons of buzz and I did watch it and I did review it, I will bring it up, but then it will get better from here. And a lot of people are loving this movie. So it's also worth talking about because you might actually love it more than I did. This is The Devil All the Time, just released on Netflix, directed by Antonio Campos, who has done a few movies. I've seen Simon Killer as one of the movies he made. He's made a few other movies.
Did you like Simon Killer?
Simon Killer was good. I didn't think it was great. It had a lot more character development, and I thought it had a really strong character study, even though it's one of those movies where the character is so hateful that it's hard to sometimes it's hard to latch onto that, like we've talked about in other movies. Whereas this movie, I think, is a lot more caricatures. Like the characters are much more broad. None of them get very deep because there's so many characters in this movie. Best way to describe this movie, first of all, The Devil All the Time. It's kind of your Southern Gothic Coen Brothers / Flannery O'Connor. You want to see your super dark morality tales, but with not a ton of depth in characters, but a lot of characters. Now, the thing that's getting a lot of press on this movie is the actor list is very, very long and very strong. You've got, Robert Pattinson, you got Tom Holland, Bill Skarsgård, Haley Bennett, which I want to call out because I loved her so much in Swallow earlier this year. And if you haven't seen Swallow from this year, that is very likely to get in my top 20 for the year.
Swallow, by the way, sorry, Bruce, is an Eric Holmes movie. Eric Holmes will love Swallow. I just know you're going to love that movie, man. No kidding. No joke, man.
It's so good. And she shines in that movie. She has a very small part in this movie, and I was sad to see her go so quickly in this movie. Riley Keough, Mia Wasikowska. I can never say her
Yeah,
name.
you said it right, Mia Wasikowska. Yeah.
And there's even more people. So,
Okay.
I mean, super deep cast list. And it's one of those movies where you get a ton of characters and they kind of interweave, and the role their paths will cross again. Very, very dark. It takes place right after World War II, right on the border between Southern Ohio and West Virginia. And it has all to do with small time religion and the way it's corrupted and the way it corrupts people, and a lot of very, very, very bad and dark things happen to pretty much almost every character in this movie.
You mentioned Flannery O'Connor. You mentioned
Yeah.
Southern Gothic thriller. You
Mhm.
mentioned the location, the time and
Mhm.
place. And you mentioned Antonio Campos. By the way, Eric Holmes, I don't know if you love Simon Killer. I love Simon Killer because I'm a borderline sociopath, by the
It's
way.
very sociopathic.
Yeah, it's a very sociopathic film. And I remember actually telling Antonio Campos how much of a genius I thought that movie was. But how do you, with all of those things, the Southern Gothic, Flannery Connor flourishes, how can you make a movie, pointing to you, Bruce, and turn them into caricatures? Is it because there were too many characters? It just seems like a no-brainer that with everything that you have, why would you make them caricatures? Because it would be so easy to make them rich individuals.
Yes, I think that's a big part of it. I think this could have been an amazing miniseries, or like on HBO, or like kind of a prestige miniseries that like a lot of them have been lately. Maybe make it a 10-episode series, because each of these stories, these kind of interwoven stories, could have a full episode each and really dig into the characters. Now, like I said, a lot of people are loving this movie. A lot of people are putting this in their top echelon for the year so far. For me, I just went down the list, and I'm going to mention the dreaded Painted Bird. It's not as bad as the Painted Bird, but it has to me the same problem, and that is it does a lot of evil things with very I guess I very, very shallow characters, and it tries to make that seem like profundity, which to me is really using this sort of movie in the wrong way. If this movie were just a straight up horror movie, great. Have like super bad guy, super good person. But here, everyone, I could describe them in a single line, and that's all you know about their character. And that annoyed me. So,
So if this movie, if The Devil All the Time went for straight pulp,
yeah,
that would have worked for you.
Sure.
Okay.
But it's trying to be super profound about the nature of religion and redemption and evil, but the characters are so two-dimensional that to me that just rubbed me the wrong way. Now, if you could just take it as pulp, go on in and have a great time. You could do that.
But then why would you
but just
take it
keep
as
in mind,
pulp?
it's very dark.
That's not the way he's trying to do it, right? Well,
Yeah,
and then for
exactly.
people who, that is weird. Eric Holmes, I don't know if you've seen a lot of Antonio Campos's work. The reason I'm a little bit disappointed in Bruce's take, because I don't know if I want to see The Devil All the Time, is because back in 2016, he directed this movie called Christine. Have you ever seen Christine, Eric Holmes?
With the car?
No, not that one. This is
Oh,
you know what?
It's like,
In all fairness, I still haven't seen Christine with the car. I still haven't seen that one. I've never seen that movie. Keith Gordon, I haven't seen that. But this one is based on the true story of Christine Chubbuck, a 1970s TV reporter who struggled with depression.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, if you want to witness a highway robbery, watch Christine, watch the performance of Rebecca Hall, and then after that, wonder why she never got an Oscar nomination. That is an accomplished, amazing movie. But again, Campos has a certain way where he does a certain flourish. So maybe with Christine, I don't know if you recall, Bruce, I think the way it was shot with that grainy look of the time. So he'll go that extra mile. And I'm wondering if The Devil All the Time, maybe you thought some of the filmmaking was a little bit too self-conscious for its own good, as opposed to really, okay.
No, I mean, let's see your point. Christine and Simon Killer are very focused character stories. They're very dark. but you know those characters. You may not like the characters, especially in Simon Killer. You may not like the main character in that movie, but you know him really well, and you can go like, okay, I don't like him, but I know I don't like him, and I see his in his case, his psychopathy, you know. Whereas in these movies, you could just say, well, that's this movie I'm talking about now. It's like, well, there's a bad person, there's a truly good person, there's a manipulative person, and that's all they are.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's the difference to me.
So you personally would not recommend The Devil All the Time in general?
Yeah, I would guardedly recommend it to people if you just want to kind of go for some junk food. It's okay in that level, but if you're looking for something deeper, I think you might be disappointed. So,
and before we get to you, Eric, do all the praise with Devil All the Time, Bruce, are you a little bit like, wow, I can't believe it got all this praise? Or do you are you sort of surprised?
I'm just identifying in myself. There's a subgenre that bugs me, and some people really love it. And right now, the subgenre, I'm calling it like suffering junk food, where it's like this really like downbeat, super hardcore misery kind of movie, but it's presented in a art house forum. I don't like those two combined together. I want you to either give me the deal or give me the junk food, but don't pretend like it's something better. And when I see those two combined, it bugs me, and that's maybe my personal hang up. I don't know.
I think that's a good point. I hope to see The Devil All the Time maybe next week. And Eric, have you seen The Devil All the Time? Were you able to check it out within the last week?
No.
Okay. Is that an Eric movie? Bruce, do you think Eric would like it?
I can't say. I think I might just have a hang up on this movie because a lot of people that we like. William Lindis loves it. Andrew Martin loves it. So just take that.
Okay.
You know.
By the way, William Lindis with the Movie Bears podcast, and Andrew watches movies. Our friend Andrew Martin. Eric Holmes, your first recommendation for this week. What do you got, buddy?
Well, I only like The Devil some of the time. This was based on what Bruce said. I'll just jump to this one next. This was a movie Bruce asked me about after reading my script. It's a 1991 movie written and directed by Michael Tolkien. I believe he wrote like Deep Impact and The Player, and he's written a bunch of really good movies. And this one's called The Rapture.
Wow.
It's got let's see, we got Mimi Rogers. It's got David Duchovny with a sweet mullet, a very sweet mullet in this one. This is it's basically about the rapture. Mimi Rogers is a hedonist. They go home, they drink, they party, they have sex, and they are living up the sinny sense and lifestyle. And they don't want to find God because they love sinning too much. And then there's some weird thing about a pearl. It's probably about the bit in the Bible. I can't remember, something like Michael, whatever it is. And so the rapture's coming, and she decides that for some reason that I don't quite understand is that she decides she wants to find God. And that's kind of the sort of the problem I have with this movie is, and it's why I wrote the one that I did, because the atheist point of view in movies are not usually argued very well by the characters. Yeah. And in this one, like in a lot of movies, almost all of them that I've seen anyway, the atheist point of view is, I don't like God because I love sinning too much. Or I don't like God because he did something and I'm not happy with it. Or I don't like God because of some other surface level reason that atheists don't have. All an atheist, I'll speak for myself, and I'm sure many others. The only reason I don't believe in God is because I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist towards God, just as I'm an atheist towards Santa Claus and towards fairies. I don't believe they exist. My lack of belief in Santa Claus has nothing to do with the fact that Santa Claus hurt me personally in my life. I just don't believe he exists. So right away, I have a problem with the premise of it. But at the same time, it's still a pretty, decent '90s kind of thriller movie. She finds God, and then her and her daughter become and David Duchovny, he he kind of became a born again Christian. Must have been on a scene that must have been on a deleted scene because he was like complete atheist, and then just on a turn of a dime cut his mullet off, and then
That's considered one of Mimi Rogers' best performances, or if I recall, one of her
if
most
this is her
popular
best performance. If this is her best performance, I mean she wasn't bad in it, but like there was so many scenes. Like this had kind of TV movie written all over it. Like Deep Impact's kind of similar to this movie, where it's kind of what would you call it? Like a little cheesy, little melodramatic. But Deep Impact works. I don't know why. It just at least for me it does. This one has the melodrama within it, like when they get really angry at God, or when they get really passionate about something, it comes off as a little soap opera-y. But there's some good stuff too, especially towards the end.
Yeah. The end is what I remember it being very weird for a movie of that era.
And dark. Like this, the movie gets dark as hell towards the end. And I don't know. This is a really weird one because there's parts in it that I love, and there's one scene in particular that. And when you said this reminded you of what I wrote, there's one scene in particular that I was like, I'm gonna rewrite that part of the script. It's really good right here. I'm gonna kind of steal this. Probably not going to, because that would change things. But there's some really good stuff in this and some really bad stuff in this. But overall, it's a pretty interesting movie. If you could find it on I think it was on Amazon, rent it for like $2 on Amazon or something like that. It'd probably be worthwhile. If you can find it free streaming somewhere, it'd be even more worthwhile. But yeah, there's just some big problems I had with it, but then there's some other stuff that I just thought was brilliant. So it's this is a really hit and miss movie for me.
Yeah.
Overall, I did kind of like. I'm glad I watched it, but it's a tepid recommend, we'll say.
Can you believe Michael Tolkien's career? I mean, he was a novelist, but a year later, after the Rapture in 1992, the Robert Altman film, The Player, was released. It's based on the Michael Tolkien novel of the same name. So I remember around 91, 92, I was a writer at the UCLA Daily Bruin as a film writer, and Michael Tolkien was a very big, and I think that's a really great recommend, Bruce. Tolkien. If you are a Gen Xer and you lived through that industry 80s, 90s time, when you mention Michael Tolkien, his name, his moniker is really high in the industry as far as how hot he was, how talented he was. I mean, think about that. Right after that, he wrote the screenplay to Deep Cover, and then in 1994 he directed a movie called The New Age, which I hadn't seen, but I remember for a while. I mean, he even wrote the screenplay to Changing Lanes, which is one of Ben Affleck's best performances and best films. So he's a very interesting writer. So Michael Tolkien, because you're all about writing, Eric.
He wouldn't be a bad one to do like we did the director spotlights, and I don't think he directed that but like just him as a writer, he's written some bangers for.
Yeah, definitely. I think
it's like a lot of, at least the movie. Well, The Player is awesome. Player's a great movie. But even Deep Impact, I get the sense that like a lot of his scripts might be better than the directors that have been attached to them.
Sure.
Even with this one, because like there's some scenes in this that's like there's nothing wrong with the writing. It's just the way that the lines are performed. It's like, ugh. And he directed it, so I mean, I guess he's got no one to blame but himself. But
a lot of times writers don't know really how to direct,
Yeah.
Stephen King.
Hey. Yeah, Maximum Overdrive is a damn masterpiece.
It's fucking awesome. That pop machine just shooting stuff out of people, man.
All right, cool. The Rapture, written and directed by Michael Tolkien, starring Mimi Rogers and David Duchovny. That was reviewed by Eric Holmes. Oh, also director spotlight. We're doing a director spotlight next week on my guy, Brian De Palma. I
Yeah.
decided to do it because Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes gave me a nice birthday present last week with their Brian De Palma choices. Bruce Perky chose, what did you choose? You chose Raising Cain. And Eric Holmes, you chose The Fury. And for my picks, I was going back and forth on this. I'm gonna for our director spotlight with Brian De Palma, we're not gonna do the obvious, which is Scarface, The Untouchables, all of these Mission Impossible, Carrie. I decided to go with one of two obscure Brian De Palma films. Okay, I wanted to do one studio Brian De Palma and the other one being Brian De Palma, Brian De Palma. So the Brian De Palma film, we can't do Raising Cain because Bruce Perky took it, thankfully so. And The Fury was an obscure one. Eric Holmes took it. I decided I really wanted to go with the Black Dahlia, but I did not want to voice that on either of you. So I'm
I'm
gonna go
fine with
with
it.
I'm gonna go with Femme Fatale. Down the road, we might do a Black Dahlia piece because I haven't told you guys my affiliation with that whole experience. That's for another discussion. But we're gonna choose Femme Fatale, a film headlined by Rebecca Romaine Stamos, co-starring Antonio Banderas. I did that press junket, so that I don't have the audio, but I have really great memories of that movie. And the other De Palma film we're going to spotlight is Casualties of War, which is one of my all-time favorite movie
Nice.
experiences. So, Eric, have you seen? I know Bruce, you've seen it. You probably saw it when it came out in theaters. Eric, have you ever
Sure.
seen Casualties of War?
I've seen both of them. I didn't
Okay,
think saw Femme Fatale, and then I realized I had the Criterion like right behind me. I was like, oh, that one. Okay.
okay. So,
But yes.
wow, I
But
didn't even know.
it's actually been a long, long time since I've seen Casualties of War, so that'll be a fun one to
Okay,
revisit for sure.
very cool. So next week we're doing Casualties of War and Femme Fatale for Brian De Palma. Now, the Bruce Perky, what is your next pick for the roundabouts?
I'll read the quick little blurb from IMDb on this one. It is American honeymooners in Hungary become trapped in the home of a Satan worshiping priest when the bride is taken there for medical help following a road accident. This is a 65-minute long movie from 1934,
Wow.
directed by Edgar G. Ulmer. It is the highest money-making movie for that year for Universal Studios. And it stars Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff in their first pairing on screen, and this is called The Black Cat.
Ah, the Bruce Cat.
Yes.
Very
It's all
good.
coming together.
Now, you got to be really careful because there's been quite a few movies called The Black Cat. The Black Cat also is a movie in 1941 that has Bela Lugosi and Basil Rathbone, and it's a very, very different movie. This movie is very interesting in a lot of ways. You kind of got the basic concept there. Bela Lugosi is heading back to the house. Bela Lugosi is named Vitus or Vitus, and Boris Karloff is Herr Pulzig. And Herr Pulzig has built this brand new Art Deco, very angular, modern house in 1935. In fact, it's the first on-screen appearance of a digital clock in this house. It's also the first on-screen appearance of a satanic cult in a movie. And so anyway, Vitus Bela Lugosi is returning to this house because he has been in prison for like 15 years, basically due to Boris Karloff's character, who had run this kind of this post there on this mountain during World War I, and it caused tons of death, and including the imprisonment of Bela Lugosi's character. Now the post, the big old military post is gone, and Boris Karloff has built his house there instead, and he's a Satan worshiper secretly. But you can tell pretty quickly he's really evil and awesome looking. And what's really great about this movie, it's Universal horror at its height, but there's no monster. The monster is just a human in this one. But it's got your two most notable actors from all the monster movies and Universal horror movies of that era. So it's really it's well loved by horror fans, but it's not as well known by just more casual moviegoers. And there's some really, really cool stuff in this movie. I don't even want to give you some of the twists because it's such a short movie. You can just watch it and enjoy it. And it moves at a very, very good clip. It's got a lot of the things that you see in those movies. It's got some pretty, it's got the high level campy acting, but it's got some genuinely creepy moments in it. And there's something about the basement sub levels of this house that is very cool, a very cool reveal that I won't tell you. But I have some really cool trivia for this movie. By the way, you can watch this on, I saw it on archive.org. You can see it on Classics streaming service. You can just probably buy the DVD.
Is archive.org? I've never heard of it. Is it a good resource?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think it's somehow affiliated through some college, and you can find a lot of really old stuff on there, like old sci-fi and horror, and like classic old movies on there. I found it on
cool.
there.
My thought be were like they curate, like we were talking about on the Elise Guy one, where they had all those film reels curated, but they weren't doing anything. Would that be like something?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I just know that I found a lot of old stuff on there, and that's where I found this. So either way, you can find this in a ton of different ways, and it's definitely worth searching out. Now, I'm going to give you some cool little details that Eric will actually enjoy as well. So first of all, Edgar G. Ulmer, he basically got blackballed shortly after this movie. Why? Because he was having an affair with the wife of the nephew of Laemmle. And Laemmle is a name that you probably know, Laemmle Theater.
Mm-hmm.
I might be saying it wrong, in California. He was a huge Hollywood producer guy back in that era. And in fact, you see his name at the beginning of this movie and at the beginning of like The Invisible Man and all these old big movies. So that didn't go over very well shortly after this when that happened. And he got blackballed. And from then on, he was making lots of super low budget movies. Now, another interesting thing, the character Polzig that Boris Karloff plays, the evil character, the name is based on a set designer who worked on Der Golem. Der Golem, Eric.
Wait, which one? Or does it say
the one you're thinking of? The big. Well, I don't know which one. That's right.
Well, the one. Okay, so the one I saw was the third one, and as far as I know, that's the only one you can find. The first two are lost movies, I think.
I'm sure it was that one because they just kind of said it as if it's the famous one, which I'm sure that's the one. He also kind of based him on Fritz Lang because he worked with Fritz Lang, and this director thought Fritz Lang was basically a satanic director, and he hated him so much that he made this evil character based on him. The other thing I noticed in this movie, I think it might be the first time you hear toccata and fugue used on an organ by an evil character. If you know that music, you hear it all the time, like da 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 da.
Okay, yeah.
And you'll hear it with like and he plays it on the organ in here, and it's really awesome. And this is just, if you like the old Hollywood Universal horror, this is a gem that you would want to check out. Just for the acting between Karloff and Lugosi is spectacular. So, The Black Cat.
Well, Edgar G. Ulmer is a filmmaker I haven't seen a lot of his stuff. I remember watching this movie called Detour, this film noir called Detour, and he's really known, along with The Black Cat, for the 1945 film Detour. And he's known, we did several, maybe a month and a half ago, we did a director spotlight on Joseph H. Lewis. We all love Joseph H. Lewis in those movies. My Name is Julia Ross and all that stuff. But Edgar G. Ulmer is considered within that whole school of low-budget filmmakers who actually brought an interesting visual style or made their low-budget movies as interesting as can be. So, I mean, I was listening to another podcast. I forgot what the name of the podcast was. They were saying that Edgar G. Ulmer is he fashions himself to be Joseph H. Lewis. But I mean, I think that was a dig at Edgar G. Ulmer, but I did see Detour and I love that movie. So I definitely want to check out The Black Cat and more films from Edgar G. Ulmer. So
I'll just say one other thing real quick. One of my favorite lines in this movie, because you know how Lugosi talks, and he does it up full force in this movie. There's one point where he's talking about supernatural stuff, and the American dude, who's just kind of the blank American couple is like, whatever. You don't care when you have these other two next to them. The one guy says something like, I don't even know that supernatural baloney. And in his total like Lugosi style, Lugosi goes like, Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not. And I was just like, oh my God, it's so good.
Baloney, perhaps not. That sounds like a great movie. Cool. The Black Cat. It's available now on archive.org and whatever streaming. Hopefully, you can find it. But it's made in 1934-35. Bruce, you were saying,
Yeah.
and yeah, cool. That is a great pull. Eric, you have one more to before we go. What's your final thing, and then we'll end with you, Bruce.
All right. This one is a movie directed by Alexander Grasshoff, written by Johnny Dawkins, based on a short story by Ron Jones and true life events. It's a 1981 movie that I remember watching in junior high, and it's called The Wave. Katrina and the Wave. It's just called The Wave. It's about a. Now I watched this in, I think it was like a history class in junior high, and I watched it again because for some reason I was just thinking of it. You go on social media, everyone's got their own political, they like to listen to their political propaganda, and this was a very early education I got on propaganda. And the movie, even though it's a kind of a TV movie, still holds up really well. It's a teacher played by Bruce Davidson. You probably know from X-Men, and he's kind of that guy kind of character actor, a really good one. And he's a teacher in a history class, and they're teaching them about World War II and the Nazis. And the kids are all they hear about the atrocity of the Nazis, and they're like, how Hitler was one guy and they killed all these Jews. How do people, it doesn't make sense. Why would they do that? And then the teacher's trying to explain it to them, and they're not getting it. And so he tries an experiment, and he tries to teach them about discipline, then teach them about community. He has them do all these little tricks. One of the tricks he has is he has them get up and walk around the class. And then he says, go to your seats. And they all, go to their seats, and they take like a minute to do so. And it's like, not fast enough, get up again. And then now what you need to do is you need to have discipline. You need to have community. You need to work together, and you'll get to the seat. And then, does a quick montage. Next thing you know, they get up and they all single file in their seats, and they're in their seats in 15 seconds. And they're like, see, look how good discipline and community works. You all work together. This is wonderful. And the students are like, yeah, this is pretty cool how we all work together and kind of, we can kind of do this little thing. And then it keeps escalating a little more and a little more until I would have to give away the end of the movie, but
what?
I'm not going to.
Okay, good.
But the whole point of this is to the teacher is trying to show the kids how they and everyone is susceptible to brainwashing and propaganda, and being in lockstep with something that may seem good at the start and turns bad, and you start making excuses for it, and then before you know it, this thing that you were following that was such a good thing ends up being this really terrible thing, and you should have jumped ship a long time ago. And honestly, I think this is a movie that it's definitely made for TV quality, especially made for TV in the 80s quality, but the message behind it and the story behind it is very, we can all do some self-cleaning. And I think if anyone listening to this would watch this movie, and don't watch it as that's something that happens to them, but watch it and put yourself in it, and watch it and say, where am I doing this? Where, what have I blindly followed that, kind of, it's a good way to kind of take stock in yourself and kind of, just not quite sure what I'm trying to say, but
Eric, I have no idea.
Sure
I have no idea what you're talking about, and stop looking at me like that.
uh, fair enough.
No, but I was looking at, in all fairness, I was looking, is it 44 minutes or it's a short movie, right?
Yeah, it's like 45 minutes. It's not long at
That's
all.
amazing.
They have a German version that's like almost 2 hours, but I saw the trailer for the German version, and first of all, like I don't know how that would play off given the Nazi aspect taking place in Germany. I don't know that it would land the same way, because the whole point of this is that the characters are looking at the Nazis as those are others. That's not us. That's what they did. We would never do such a thing, and then they go and do that thing without even realizing it. So it's just a good movie to watch it, and don't watch it as if others do this. Watch it as this is something I'm capable of. This is something maybe I've already done, and maybe you can take stock in your own life, and maybe just do some internal cleaning and maybe make yourself a better person in the long run.
Well, what's cool is you said you saw this years ago and then you picked it up again, and it really, and it still holds true, which is a very good thing.
Yeah.
So, okay. The Wave, Bruce Davison, YouTube I'm sorry, where is it streaming? You just rented it or?
It's on YouTube, which I guess has been a problem in the past, but this one is this was specifically I I believe this
no problem, folks. He's just
I believe this movie was specifically made for to be played in schools, so it was made as a
got it.
Yeah, educational purposes.
As a PSA, but it works as more than a PSA,
which
is good. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And especially with the way that, the country's politically, or the USA, I know we have listeners outside the USA, but
Greece, Iran, Australia, UK,
yeah,
Philippines, Thailand, possibly Greenland. The US, I just made that up. Go ahead.
The USA specifically is very divided by two very strong, political ideologies that are separated. And I think a lot of people fall prey to what they show in The Wave that may not know it. So,
okay, The Wave starring Bruce Davison. Are you a Bruce Davison fan, Eric Holmes?
I am. Yeah, he's one of those actors like. He's kind of like a warm blanket.
Okay.
At least for me, I kind of take him for granted, but whenever he shows up and stuff, he always delivers. He's kind of like one of those really good character actors.
And I know you like I know you like Burt Lancaster because you like Brute Force, right?
Yeah.
And you like the Scalp Hunters, and I apologize. I think your DVD is still sitting up there, not being watched. And again, I'm talking about Casualties of War, and you sent me years ago, I think, Bright Lights, Big City. It's somewhere there too. So I apologize for that, Eric Holmes. The reason why I'm saying this, in 1972, there's a movie directed by Robert Aldrich called Ulzana's Raid, and it stars Burt Lancaster and Bruce Davison. And it is an excellent Western. I think it's one of Bruce Davison's first film, and basically it's Bruce Davison and Burt Lancaster going toe to toe. So FYI, Ulzana's Raid, and it's quite. Look, I want us to continue to do the podcast together, Eric Holmes. I'm going to give you a little bit of confession. I did see about 15 minutes of the Scalp Hunters, and I did turn it off because it was a little bit too fun. I know you told me it's a fun movie, but I've got to get back to it. I was a little bit disappointed from what I was seeing. And, but it's Ozzie Davis, so I like him. But Ulzana's Raid, excellent film, FYI. Yeah. Bruce Davison, Burt Lancaster, Bruce Perky, you're going to lead us out with your final recommendation for this episode.
Yeah. My camera's been crazy, but no one cares.
That's good. That works. That works to the old visual component to it. Edgar G. Ulmer would have approved.
It's true. So my last one is kind of a little flashback to Satoshi Kon. We had our special Satoshi Kon feature last week. So if you haven't heard that, go back and listen to it. So if you've gone through all of Satoshi Kon's 4 feature films and you are disappointed that you have no more Satoshi Kon to explore because of his short life as a director, there is a 13-part series that he made for Japanese television in 2004 called Paranoia Agent. Now, he directed or was partially directed pretty much all the episodes, although other people were involved as well because it's such a huge undertaking. So if you think of it kind of like Twin Peaks, where some people directed an episode, but it was all David Lynch's vision, it's kind of like that. Now, as far as finding it, it's a little tough. I had to get a used DVD selection, and it costs about $50 to $60 to do that.
What the heck?
But you
Wow.
can go to Funimation, and if you like anime and animation, that might be a place for you to go and get your streaming. So, a couple little things about this. Each episode's about 24 minutes long, so it's not a huge undertaking to watch this entire series. You can watch it all in a couple days pretty easily. And an interesting facts about it were that it was considered too extreme to be on Japanese television, so it only was shown on their satellite services. It was banned from the regular Japanese television because Satoshi Kon doesn't really, flinch from certain things, as you have probably known from watching his other stuff. So the basic concept is this, and I won't go into too many details other than that. If you ever watched Orange is the New Black, how each episode, it'll focus on a different character, but then eventually, as you get to know all the characters, they also interweave into a more ongoing full story. This does something similar. Each episode, you meet a different character, and that kind of interweaves into what you've already learned as you go forward. But each episode also is its own kind of standalone story. This was based on Satoshi Kon had a whole bunch of ideas that he hadn't been able to quite put into a movie yet, so he came up with this. As far as where it fits in his kind of selection of movies, I would say put this right in between Perfect Blue and Paprika, and you have a perfect kind of a straight line of kind of his logic. How this starts, it's really interesting, and there are connections to all of his stuff. In fact, there is a kind of a torn down house that features in a couple of the episodes of this that you see briefly in Tokyo Godfathers. If you watch Tokyo Godfathers, that's kind of a little Easter egg.
Wow.
So the basic concept is it starts out with a young woman who is a character designer for like an anime company, right? And she has come up with this cute little like dog figure, a little pink dog. And if you look at stuff for Paranoia Agent, you'll see this pink dog. And it's kind of a semi-hit, and she's under pressure to come up with another cute character that will be also a hit. So she's kind of losing it because she has all this stress. And by the end of the episode, she is attacked by a kid on roller skates with a baseball bat. And that's kind of the end of the episode. And that baseball bat character starts to become known as Shonen Bat. And as these episodes go on, you meet character after character after character, and they all interweave. It really plays hard with the idea of rumors and the way that kind of social media creates something to be kind of a folk hero, but also paranoia, but also the stories get bigger than the actual reality. And there's a lot of stuff about that. And this actually launched the month that Facebook launched. So just like, remember we watched Perfect Blue and we talked about how it was so early in the internet era, it was super ahead of its time. This is super ahead of its time on the way social media can kind of create a weird monster in society that kind of gets a life of its own. I'll give you a couple other ideas and then I'll let it go. But this is an idea of the kind of weirdness that'll happen in an episode. There's one episode where a character is delusional and thinks that he's a heroic character from a super fantasy thing. And that whole episode sucks the detectives into that fantasy world, a la the Millennium Actress. And you actually see the whole story told in the fantasy realm that he's talking about. Another episode is three characters who have been talking online. Remember, this is super early in social media, who have been talking online and have created a relationship with each other. A very young girl, about 8 years old, a very shy adult, probably about 25-year-old man, and an old man. They all meet for a day out to go have fun together for the first time, actually meeting face to face. And the whole goal is to try to figure out a way to commit suicide together. That is one episode.
Thank I'm
So,
depressed. I'm now depressed.
but it's
I,
like it's the most lighthearted episode. It's crazy. I
that's
can't
the most
describe it.
lighthearted episode. Wow.
It is, but it's lighthearted.
Suicide.
It's insane. I can't describe it, but just in the way that you've seen Satoshi Kon and how he does
Wow.
things that just really blow your mind, the way he combines things. This series is freaking amazing.
He didn't blow my mind right now. He used to blow my mind. Now he's making me want to get an antidepressant and go travel to South Africa and hang out with that dude with his agency and then pet some octopi. My goodness, that is something else. Was it?
It is.
It was worth the $50 to $60 score.
It is for me. I mean, by now I'm a Satoshi Kon fanboy. So if you are a lover of his other stuff, you will love this and you want it in your collection. I wouldn't say this is where you jump in. This is when you already are a confirmed lover of his stuff. But it kind of be like you. If you love everything that De Palma has done, and you found out he had a series that had 10 episodes, you would probably get that. So
yeah, wow. If you had your druthers and if you had lots of cash, some of that disposable stuff would be going to collectibles of Satoshi Kon.
I might have looked up whether you could buy one of those plush pink dogs that's in Paranoia Agent to see if they exist.
Do they exist? Do they?
Not as much as you would think, but because of how dark that is when you actually see what it's all about, I can kind of see why they haven't created it. So it would be kind of fucked up to create. But there are, I think, some sheet sets you can buy or something. I don't know.
That's amazing. Okay. So that is it. Satoshi Kon, Paranoia Agent. Bruce got it $50 to $60. But also, you said Funimation could be a good.
Yeah, Funimation, you can get it on there, and you could probably find it some other places too. I mean, it's like we talked about with Satoshi Kon. It'll go in and go out. You might all of a sudden have it available on Hulu. So keep your eye out for it.
And keep your eye out for Eric Holmes. He still has 15 minutes to get to with Millennium Actress. There's a little bit of it will knock you out.
Good 15 minutes, right?
And you're gonna go. What are you gonna say? You're really gonna be blown away. It just there's just this one scene. And listeners, Millennium Actress. I would have to say, we've been doing Find Your Film for how many episodes? Out of all of the movies that we've covered, I'm gonna be honest with you. I would say if there's anything that you can take, I don't know if you guys agree. Millennium Actress, you could start with that first and then rifle down some of our other recommendations. I'm just going to selfishly say that. I just think it's fantastic stuff. So Millennium Actress. Eric, do you have anything else to say before we get out of here?
Check out The Wave. Maybe check out the Rapture and that the title sucks so bad. What's the first one we did? The Last Shift.
The Last Shift.
Check out The Last Shift. I think I might have been a little too hard on it. It's a really good movie. It just hits way too close to home a lot of times. But it's really well done.
And before we end up with Bruce saying something before we go, I didn't want to add. I did see a couple things. I did see this movie called 12-Hour Shift. I mentioned it on our Cinematics Facebook group. It is another movie that's coming out via Magnet Releasing. With all the coverage all three of us did on Alone, they might flag us for being Magnet Releasing shill boys for doing this. But I really love 12-Hour Shift. I am going to try to get you guys links for it for next week because I'm now covered. I've actually seen this movie, and hopefully, I'm telling you, I think at the very least, both of you will appreciate what 12-Hour Shift has to offer, okay? And then I also received just a couple of hours ago. Are any of you guys Aaron Sorkin fans? Because I received the screener link to The Trial of the Chicago 7. Is that based on a true story? I don't know.
You got a screener link for that?
I got it. Yeah. Are you guys? Before we leave, are you guys both Sorkin guys? Do you like the writing? Eric,
huge Sorkin fan.
Yeah.
Huge Sorkin fan.
Bruce, you
he's
love.
great.
Okay.
Yeah.
The writing. Okay. Favorite Sorkin piece of work, guys, before we go. What is it?
Oh fuck. Newsroom's really good.
I like the one Molly's
Actually,
Game.
yeah,
love-
I think that might be it for me too.
Molly's Game.
Because like it's his writing and he directed it, so it's kind of. But he's got like a lot of Fincher influence. You can tell because after Social Network and
How does Molly's Game get
Sorkin's great.
so ignored? How did that movie get so ignored?
I don't know.
It's hard to sell on paper. Think about it. Like it doesn't sound. It's hard to describe why it's interesting and entertaining when you just tell people about it.
Yeah,
you have to see it and hear it.
It's got one of the greatest openings, and it's about skiing.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the opening scene? A woman skiing down a slope. But
I defy a person
it
to watch
is-
that movie and not go back and look for that clip. I defy somebody to not do that.
dude,
Wow.
that scene is
Yeah.
so good. But like you describe it, it sounds like the most boring thing on the planet. But you watch it and go, "Why am I so?"
Yeah.
I've never been so enthralled with skiing in my entire life.
Well, you're gonna direct your own movie, Eric, and you've been doing this on our Facebook group. You've been posting pages of stuff you've written as a screenwriter. Is Sorkin right at the top as far as people that you appreciate as far as structure and story goes?
He's got his own style. He's not an influence on my style really because he's his dialogue. People say that all his characters sound the same, and I don't think they do. They sound the same because they got a similar cadence, but they all have their different points of view. They all have strong points of view, and if you watch enough of his stuff, you'll like I could hear say Sloan Sabbath in Newsroom talk to President Bartlett, and without telling me, you could swap their dialogue, and I'd be able to tell. No, that's something Sloan Sabbath would say. That's something President Bartlett would say. Like they all have really strong points of view on things. So even though they have a similar cadence, I think it's unfairly, and I think a lot of it's. I'm just gonna go off on this, but I think a lot of it is people are like, oh, Sorkin ain't that great. They all sound the same, but they don't really know what it is he's doing. But I do because
Eric Holmes is all about.
I know, man. I'm in the know. The government doesn't want you to know, but
Eric Holmes has a nuance. And by the way, folks, if Eric Holmes in a couple of years, he'll be a professor. He's going to be doing wave reenactments in his class. If you do that, you can reach him very, very soon. As soon as he gets his film out there, he'll be tenured at a college doing the wave. Bruce, before we get out of here, last thing, get us out.
Well, I just want to get everybody prepared. You know, it's almost October, and we are going to be subjugating or subverting poor Greg into so much horror by the end of October that he is going to be one of us. Just like Freaks by Todd Browning. Gooble gobble, gooble gobble.